for any state of affairs and reasoning, then what is it that you ultimately assume,
Look, you
right?
would
Because when we're
acknowledge,
talking
right,
about
that,
worldviews, because
or
you said you're a positive atheist. Isn't that what you said?
yeah, I'm just saying that not to confuse anybody that I'm like
Right.
one of these new atheists who shirk the burden of proof. I think it's the case that God probably doesn't exist.
Great. Okay, great. So how did you so where is it that you where is it that you acquire all knowledge and
I don't think I got the answer to the question, like why it's the case that the no
yeah, it's a
other no
universal
other worldview,
yeah, it's a
no other.
universal negative. They presuppose the Christian God and his property set.
Uh, how do you figure? What's different? What are what property sets does the Christian God have that allow for intelligibility that mere theism doesn't?
Yeah, the law yeah. So the Christian God is in him being omniscient and omnipotent in
Mere
the
theism has
laws of
that.
logic. Yeah, no, the problem, the problem with theism is, well, it depends. Well, it depends what religion you're dealing with. What
Mere
specifically?
theism. Mere theism. I think I've been really clear. Mere
Yeah,
theism.
well, the Christian God. Yeah, well,
MERE
the
theism.
Christian. Yeah, well, well, now we're getting into okay. Well, now we're getting into the okay. But the specific. So the Christian God solves the one and the many problem in that he is a single entity that's made up of three persons: the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Okay. So now that we've clarified that, what is it in your worldview, the presuppositions of atheism, that account for the actualization of such things as
Wait, so
logic and
why
truth
does the
propositions?
Trinity why does the Trinity get you away from the one of the many problem?
Yeah, because there's unity among diversity.
And why couldn't any other triune or biune or quatrine God like or mere theistic deity do this?
Yeah, because they require the Christian worldview as a necessary precondition,
Well,
just
I
as
mean
you do.
that's now you're
That's
begging the
why,
question. Well, that's
yeah,
begging
no,
the question.
and as I should be. That's the point.
Well, I mean I'm not going to
It would
accept
be
that.
incoherent for me to do otherwise. So I'm saying, the point. I'm saying if my reasoning isn't circular, which I'm employing epistemic circularity, not fallacious circularity. Um, that is, if I were to give and draw an analogy of fallacious circularity, if someone said, let me think here. If someone said, hey, why is it that why is it that you, I don't know, why is it that, why is it you went to bed so, why is it you said went to bed so late? And I just said, because, just because I felt like going to bed. But that's not really a reason. I would just be kind of just begging the question. But if I were to say that God is an ontological necessity and starting point for my reasoning, and you were to say, why is that? It's because due to the impossibility of the contrary, that would be a completely coherent and consistent statement
Yeah,
I'd
but
be making. If I were to
yeah, but
say the reason why he is because such and such, I don't know, independent of God's authorship and divinity, okay, then that would be subduing God's ultimacy.
I mean, if
So
you could
I
just
think the
beg the
problem,
question for a justification of why it begs the contrary, which is what you're trying to justify, then anyone can do
I'm
that
saying,
for
then
any
what is it that you're
proposition, right?
epistemologically, yeah,
I can just say that the napkin in front of me that says that I am the preconditions for intelligibility are the preconditions for intelligibility, and every other alternative is impossible. When you ask me to prove it, I could say, well, it says so right here. I can just beg the question like you did. What's the difference between me begging the question about the napkin in front of me and you begging the question about the Christian God?
yeah, because that's a contingency. So
No, it's
that
not though.
napkin, yeah, that napkin,
Everything is actually contingent on the napkin.
no,
The napkin never came into being. It's actually exists eternally.
no, that's just okay. Well, that's just an etymological fallacy because that napkin's not eternal unchanging and absolute. That napkin is a concrete object. That napkin is not a universal. Yeah, no, it's not a universal. Yeah, it's not a universal necessity, right? So I'm saying, what is it in your worldview that universally exists and necessarily exists that you
If we're just going
will
to allow
reference
begging the
when
question about
it's making?
we're just going to
Yeah, I
if we're
am.
going to
I
allow
am
begging
begging
the
the
question,
question. If I were to not beg the question, it would be incoherent.
right? But you weren't begging the question about like the ultimacy of your
Well, this
worldview.
is the
You were begging the
problem.
question
It's
about the
that
justification
you're
for.
not epistemologically self-conscious insofar as you're exercising the
No, I think I
properties of the
am.
Christian
I'm
God, like
aware. I'm
reasoning.
aware of the Munchausen trilemma. I'm aware why it's a problem.
You're making use and you're exercising the law of non-contradiction, using that as a model to point out my ostensible way of begging the question. What I'm saying is, well, what is it in your worldview? Why is it possible in a not God world to point out error, flaw, or lack in one's reasoning?
Oh, I can't help but reason that way. That's the way I happen to reason.
Okay, so it's just
Could I ask a question?
autonomous reasoning. But wait a
Can
minute, but you don't necessarily exist. You're a particular.
can I ask a question?
You already did.
Yes, but could you tell me how it is possible that not begging the question is incoherent?
Yeah, because beg the question, you were referencing um and you were referencing a plurality of standards, then you just be predisposing yourself to an infinite regression of having to prove what is ultimate. You'd have to be jumping from ultimate to ultimate to ultimate, right? Whether if you had an absolute and universal starting point that's unchanging, okay, then you wouldn't have to reference purported ultimates.
You
Look, I
didn't
have
answer
to,
my
Brenda. Hold
question.
on one second. I'm gonna actually take over, Brenda, because I've got to call some of my drivers right now. I just want to point out that I asked this guy to justify the impossibility of the contrary, that there could be any other worldview that accounts for the preconditions of intelligibility, except for he tried, and when he did, he admittedly begged the question. I just want to point that out before I have to.
Yeah, I as I should. You have no good reason why that's a problem.
I just want to know what the argument is that question begging is coherent.
Yeah, question begging in this case, because you have to understand it's a misapplication of identifying a supposed logical fallacy when dealing with ontology, or rather, ontology or epistemology, because when we're talking, like, I don't think you understand.
Right.
When we're
I don't
dealing with
understand. I'm trying to
systems of thought,
understand.
when we're dealing with worldviews, every system of thought has a starting point that verifies itself. When asked if it's the correct standard, you either offer that standard as the verification of the standard, or something. If you offer another standard, that standard now becomes ultimate. Do you
Yeah, I
understand?
don't understand. No, I don't understand. I was asking. So, in your worldview, not begging the question is incoherence, and I'm trying to understand that. And I'm having a hard time understanding how not begging the question makes one incoherent.
Yeah, I just told you why. I said if you were not to use that framework or standard as as what props up or undergirds um that standard itself, okay, then you're subjecting yourself to to referencing out ad infinitum.
So, by not begging the question, I'm committed to infinite regress. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Why do I have to take that horn of the trilemma?
Why do you have to beg a question?
No, why do I have to take the infinitism horn of the trilemma?
Yeah, you don't have to. That's the point I'm
Okay.
trying to make, is that you should not. It would be incoherent to do so.
Well, I don't have to take yours or the infinitism horns. I can just
Because
take
if you're claiming that your ultimate is all powerful and omniscient, while simultaneously not using that same ultimate as a validation, then that ultimate is now rendered not ultimate. Do you understand?
No, that's literally gibberish. But it really is. It really is. So I would just take the foundationalist horn.
It's not a starting point.
Yeah, it is. There's 3 horns to the trilemma.
It literally is a starting
What
point.
trilemma? What are you talking about?
I'm talking about Agrippa's trilemma. That's what you're talking about. And
yeah,
you
what's
are
your starting point?
Well, I'd be a foundationalist.
Yeah, what does that mean?
You don't know what foundationalism is.
No, that's why I asked the question.
Hold on, are you aware of Agrippa's trilemma or the Munchausen trilemma?
What is it? Yeah, what is it that you invoke or assume that's ultimate if it's not God?
They don't.
How long have you been studying?
That's not what the trilemma states.
How long have you been studying?
They don't train him so good at precept school these days.
No, I'm just asking you a basic question.
The foundationalism. There's 3 horns in Agrippa's trilemma.
Brenda, if he knows what it is, ask him to explain it.
Oh, he knows what it is? I thought he said he didn't.
No, I'm asking you because this is very important. This is vital because you're using various lines of reasonings and identifying these philosophical trilemmas.
We can do that because
but
we
you
agree
can't
on
do
these,
that.
right?
Yeah, but you can't do that. But once again, you can't do that without epistemological self-awareness in a worldview, in a foundation. So I'm saying if you're not aware of where it is that you are attaining and acquiring such knowledge, then all that you're saying could be rendered to philosophical nonsense. It would be futile.
Yeah,
so I'm saying,
we're
what
just
is
trying to
it that
convince you.
what is
you
it
already agree with these rules of inference, right?
I'm aware of my foundational presuppositions.
You said you're not?
I said I am aware of them.
Yeah, so where do they come from? What is it that you assume?
They're taken on faith.
So you're saying that God doesn't exist in virtue of something that you've postulated? Something that you do not know completely?
No, God not existing is not one of my properly basic beliefs, but my properly basic beliefs I take on faith due to retortion.
Yeah.
Do you know what retortion?
He doesn't want to ask what that is.
You take your basic beliefs are based off of retortion?
How did I leave Seth and come back to Brenda?
I justify.
I got shit I got to do.
I justify my presuppositions.
What does that even mean?
I justify my presuppositions through retortion. Retortion is that the fact that I cannot help but use them in the process of trying to refute them. And therefore, I simply accept them on faith. So, for example, the law of non-contradiction, I take on faith through retortion, because in attempting to refute the law of non-contradiction, I'd have to use the law of non-contradiction.
So you're saying your ultimate is the laws of logic?
There are no laws of logic.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not having a conversation with you.
Who told you there are any laws of logic? There aren't any.
All right, I'm not doing that.
There aren't any. There are axiomatic systems that people adopt, and they create those axioms based on their properly basic beliefs, right? So there are no prescriptive laws of logic. There are descriptive basic axioms.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to say that. If you're saying that the laws of logic, yeah. So if so you're saying there's no laws of logic?
They when presuppers say that, I take it to mean that prescriptive, and there are no prescriptive laws of logic. There are axiomatic systems. Logic has axioms. It doesn't have laws. It has axioms.
Yeah, it does have laws because if they were descriptives, then they wouldn't be. The laws of logic are prescriptives. The laws of logic are prescriptives insofar as that it would be a true statement that reality does not exist. It would also be an equally true statement to say reality does exist. So so the laws of logic are not contingent upon reality's existence
Can you
or
name another
contingency.
prescriptive law that you can't break?
Reality existing is not any of the axioms of any logical system.
So you're saying the laws of logic don't exist. You're saying logic does not exist.
I'm saying that logic is a language invented by humans to describe the world around us.
So you're saying that we ceased to exist until we contrived the laws of logic?
What does existence have to do with this?
Existence is the laws of logic are the substratum to existence.
What's your argument for that?
Yeah, is that reality exists. Okay, that'll be the law of identity. Reality exists or reality does not exist. They can't both exist contemporaneously. Yeah, it does follow. If the law
does not follow, it does not follow that for all A equals A, that therefore reality exists.
Yeah, if the laws of logic are a product of our minds are variant. Our minds are not absolute. Hence why we have these prescriptive laws, okay, that we make use of when engaging in argumentation and making various theorems and propositions.
Number one, existence is not a predicate, so it's not under any system.
Yeah, it is a predicate. You think existence is what exists necessarily?
No, it is not.
Did reality begin to exist?
Not a predicate.
Did reality begin to exist?
It's not a predicate. You don't know what a predicate is.
Yeah, a predicate is a contingency.
What's a predicate?
Did reality begin to exist?
What is a predicate?
I just told you what it means. Did reality exist? Did reality... Hello? Did I cut out? Did reality begin to exist?
What does that have to do with what we're talking about? I told you that existence
because if reality began to exist, and that's to say that it's contingent upon something, that it doesn't have to exist. That is in principle what it means when something is a contingency. It doesn't necessarily have to exist. It's constrained to a limited time index, unlike that which exists necessarily can't not exist as universal.
So here's what I'd like you to do is to write your paper refuting Kant's refutation that or exhortation that existence.
I'm talking to you now. I'm talking to you now. You're saying
collect your
began
PhD.
to exist.
That's a non sequitur.
Of course, no, it's not. It's not a non sequitur. Actually, it completely follows from what we're conversing about. Is that if reality always is, I mean, if atheists want to be consistent, they have at least to be consistent in their inconsistency, and to say that they're saying that necessarily exists, then you can't say that. I mean, like if you're saying that reality began to exist, then you'd be forced to concede that reality is a contingency, is a predicate. You're telling me reality is a predicate.
Existence
it would follow that reality began to exist.
Existence is a quality of a thing, right?
Yeah, I don't even. What does that even mean?
Existence does not add. I mean, a predicate indicates a quality of a thing, a part of its essence. So it could be brown, it could be long, it could be fast. Those are predicates. Existence is not a predicate because it doesn't add to the quality or essence of anything.
Right. So
Thank you.
Is existence something that necessarily exists?
That's like literal gibberish.
You said that is not a predicate. Thus, what the concomitant would be that existence exists necessarily, meaning that you are saying that necessary existence is congruent things like metaphysical necessity, logical necessity, they're all equally necessary, meaning that there are no distinctions, meaning that all is possible. There are no impossibilities.
So a predicate is a particle of speech that indicates.
We clarified what a predicate is.
Yes, and so
we know what a predicate is.
Not a predicate.
So you think?
Yes,
so you
and
think
existence
that,
is not
yeah,
one of
so
those.
you think that necessary existence? So you think that necessary existence, like the? So you think that you're conflating particular with being necessities. They're not necessities. That's the whole point. This is why we have distinctions between necessities and necessities. Because if you're saying that reality exists necessarily, then you're no longer dealing with such necessities like the laws of logic and analytical statements, mathematical statements, identity statements.
I take mathematical.
They're all equally illusory.
I take mathematical statements to be a language which is a descriptive of our concepts, our ideas, our thoughts about things, right?
So you don't take, so they're not a third. So do you deny, okay, so do you object to universals?
Yeah, I'm not correct. I'm not convinced that there are any universals. That is correct.
Okay, so that's to be, so would you define universal as an entity, that is an explanation of things that share a feature, attribute, or quality, like things like color, shape, universal?
Yeah, I don't think that they're correct. I don't think that there are any universals. I would reject Plato's law of universal forms. Yes.
Okay.
I don't feel like I need it, and I can get just fine without appealing to universals.
Right, so
I can appeal to particulars. I can appeal to particulars and to their qualities and properties that they have. And property is not. Those are predicates, and existence is not one of those predicates because it doesn't add anything to the concept of what a thing is.
Right, so you're forced. Right, so now you're forced to say that existence exists necessarily. Right?
No, I'm not forced to say that at all.
Okay, this is cognitive dissonance 101 here. So you're saying existence is not a predicate, though when challenged whether it is a necessity, which would be what logically follows if it's not a predicate, you say no, it's not.
What, according to you, is a universal?
I just told you what a universal is.
Well, what is it? What is it in your metaphysics? Where would you place it?
Well, when something has universal quality, it is omnipresent. It's ubiquitous. But when we're talking about universal itself, yeah, universal would be a quality of something or an attribute of something, right?
So circles are omnipresent?
Circles are a universal.
Right. So they're omnipresent.
Yeah, it's a third. Yeah, so when you identify a circle, okay, like that, or when things when things are a circle, that's a third entity. Okay. If I were to compare two concrete
In a
objects,
possible
that
world with
circle
only
would be a
one
third
dimension, do circles exist?
entity.
So there's a possible world where there's only one dimension. Does that dimension have circles?
I don't even know what that means.
Did we say circles are necessary objects? Did I miss that? I thought we said
Yeah,
that.
shapes. Yeah. Well,
Right. Well, one dimension. So there can't be a
shapes, colors. They're
circles
universals. Yeah.
Hold on. So circles are necessarily two-dimensional objects. There's a possible world where there's only one dimension. Is there one dimension? Is there a possible one-dimensional world with two-dimensional objects?
I don't even know what that means.
It's because it's nonsense. There can't be a one-dimensional world with two-dimensional objects, can there?
Right. So I'm saying then
circles
what
can't
is
be
it?
necessary.
Yeah. Well, then how do you get? Okay. Well, then how does it? I truthfully I don't understand. Are you drawing a hypothetical? With a reality that would have the possibility of having
circles were necessary
logically
objects,
contradictory statements?
Look, I've just heard the claim that circles were necessary objects, and it occurs to me that they're not, because for this reason.
Well, I said circles are universal.
So, I just clarified, and I asked if somebody said that they were necessary, and you affirmed. I mean, was that a mistake?
Yeah, well, they can't. Well, my point is that circles are something that are not a circles are something that's not a contingency. All right.
Didn't you say that things that are contingent are necessary?
No. That would be a logically contradictory.
It's logically contradictory to say things that aren't contingent are necessary. That seems entailed. Am I crazy?
No,
but
no. When something exists, no, it's just the wording. No, it's just the wording was confusing. Yeah, when something is, you have necessities and you have contingencies. Okay, circles are circles are a metaphysical necessity. Okay, yeah, we clarified that. But you object to universals in principle, right?
Why would they not exist in this possible world I propose?
Why would they not exist?
Necessary objects exist in all possible worlds, do they not?
Yeah.
Great. Well, a one-dimensional world is a possible world. Do circles exist in a one-dimensional world?
Why would they not?
Because circles are two-dimensional objects. By definition, they need two dimensions to exist.
Yeah. Why? How can you draw that? How can you draw that possibility?
What possibility?
Are all things possible in your worldview?
No, he just made a logical deduction. It was a simple modus ponens.
Okay. When dealing with universals, okay. So correct me if I'm wrong. Who was I talking to? I was talking to Seth, and there's another individual.
That's me.
What's your username?
Brenda.
Okay.
Brenda.
Okay, Brenda. Yeah. So you object to the concept of principles, right? I'm sorry, the concept of universals, correct?
Well, until somebody gives me a better argument to abandon that, yeah, sure, for the time being.
Okay. All right.
I think that I was just wondering what you are. You sound like a Platonist or Aristotelian or what?
I believe that there can be both abstract and concrete objects that exist that can coexist with each other, but not independent of a demiurge.
Whoa. Okay, that was a jump that I didn't expect.
Why not?
Because there's lots of people that believe in abstract objects. Lots of mathematicians do.
Okay.
I'm not totally convinced, but I mean, I could be. But most people that are like mathematical Platonists believe that they're just and there's just this sort of abstract realm which has no causal relations with our concrete world, and that we somehow just
Yeah, they're acausal, necessarily existent, non-spatio-temporal objects.
I could be convinced of that. I'm not sure. I'm sort of attracted to conceptualism, but it doesn't matter in the end. But if we get into full-blown Platonism, where there's this world of forms, that's a little bit different. But when you say there has to be a demiurge, then I'm lost.
Well, I'm just confused in how you could ground any of this.
Well, I told you how I ground it.
You said you have no laws of logic.
No, I said what I said is that I take it when presuppositionalists talk about laws of logic, they're talking as prescriptive, and I think that they're descriptive because I'm aware that there are many different. There are many different axiomatic systems that accept or reject different axioms. For instance, some logicians and mathematicians do not make use of the law of the excluded middle or the axiom of choice. And there are, last time I looked on Wolfram Alpha, there were 3,000 axiomatic formal systems, right, that people have invented. People invent these things, and we find some of them useful. We find Zermelo-Fraenkel plus the axiom of choice useful in describing the world around us, but there are others that are not. They're just arbitrary games that mathematicians love to play.
Okay, yeah. So if I make the proposition that 5 plus 5 is 10, and someone says no, because their arbitrary framework of logic permits them to do so, how can any intelligibility arise from that?
Well,
can't be sounds and cogent negation made against that proposition.
Addition is the way logicians think about this. Operations like the simple, like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, these are theorems that can be proved within a particular formal system. So 1 plus 1 equals 2 in the Tractatus, right? Russell and Whitehead proved 1 plus 1 equals 2 from their beginning assumptions. So 1 plus 1 equals 2 is a theorem within a certain axiomatic system. I mean, you can prove 1 plus 1 equals 2 from the Peano postulates.
Yeah, but in order to, still, if you mathematical, so you don't believe that mathematical statements and mathematical proofs are universal?
No.
Why not?
Not in the way you're speaking about.
Well, no, I'm speaking of Brenda. She said that you don't believe that mathematical statements. You don't. Okay.
Well, here's a mathematical statement. Let me put a challenge to you. For every straight line A, there exists a point not on A through which a line can be drawn that never intersects a point B, not on line A, through which a line can be drawn which will not intersect with the line A. Now, that's Euclid's fifth postulate. Do you think it's true in all possible worlds?
That's how you make lots of friends of parties, by the way. This exact trick, it's great.
Do you think that's true?
Sorry, what?
Do you think that's true in all possible worlds?
I don't know.
Euclid's fifth postulate. Well, as it turns out, it's not.
You presuppose will you presuppose the law of identity before making that statement?
Oh, I need to.
So you know what it is that you're saying?
Yes, I take the law of identity on faith through retortion.
On faith through retortion.
Yes.
In other words,
it's impossible for me to if you've read Plantinga, right?
Yeah.
We take as proper basic beliefs ideas that cannot be reduced any further, and till accepting them. Reject it to the point where rejecting them is impossible, because the contrary is simply not possible, right? So we take the law of identity as true on faith, because it's impossible for us to refute that, because in order to refute the law, some of the basic laws, we would have to assume them. And so you can't do
I
that.
fucking love planting.
Yeah,
I think
so
planting
what
is about
you-
as useful for secular philosophy as it is for theism.
Yeah, he's
great.
very good, and he's been moving more and more.
What you've-
He's been changing his views on a little.
What you've revealed to me is your entire worldview and epistemology is resting on something that is nothing but a postulation.
Oh snap!
Yes,
And that
yes,
logic
yes, it is. Yes,
and the substratum to your philosophy is arbitrary. It has no
yes.
inherent
No,
and objective truth value to it.
What?
it's not arbitrary. If there's no alternative, it's not. It's necessary, not arbitrary. But
That's true. That's true.
But once again, if it's arbitrary and you saying that you're making the true statement that's
wait, it's not
necessary,
arbitrary.
I can just boil it down to it's just your opinion.
Well, it's
It's
not
true due to
arbitrary.
the impossibility of the contrary.
Logical
Yeah.
truths are logical truths
what
are
grounds?
necessary in philosophy. They're not arbitrary.
I would agree.
Wait,
I would agree. I would agree. They're necessary. But how does necessary existence tie into something descriptive
What?
what?
and only descriptive?
How does what?
You're talking about the
How
laws
does
of logic?
necessary existence conform to something that's descriptive?
What kind of I mean, what's the point of the question?
Yeah, if it's
Right.
if something is
What?
descriptive, then it's arbitrary.
What?
No, it's not.
If something
There's
is
nothing else.
solely descriptive without first presupposing a prescriptive absolute, for instance,
What?
the laws of logic, then it's just arbitrary.
Wait, aren't we talking about exactly those things?
Talking
Anyways,
about
sorry, let
the
me
laws of logic, I would agree the laws of logic are prescriptive, but you're denying that.
So I believe I agree with Greg Bahnsen that every system needs to have some unproven assumptions as its starting point that are not antecedent to those assumptions with which we reason. We reason with our unproven assumptions. That's what reasoning is.
Look, can I ask a question of this person? So I saw them have a question answered for them, and I'd just like to see if it was clarified for them or if that answer was their opinion. So, what is God's relation to the laws of logic? Are they prior to him?
No,
Are they separate
they
from
were
him?
no. The law is God's essence.
What?
What's that?
The laws of logic mirror God's nature. Insofar as he can't not exist, he can't exist while simultaneously not existing, and it is true he exists.
So they're separate from God then. If they
No,
mirror his nature.
No, they're just the makeup of his nature.
Oh, they make up his nature. That's different from mirroring.
They are his nature.
Right.
That's different than.
Yeah, they are his nature. Yeah.
Could God
Yeah, okay,
change
there
his?
it is.
Could God
So-
change his nature?
No, he's bound and constrained to his own nature.
It can't.
That's
so they're
weird.
Not dependent on. So the laws of logic aren't dependent on the Christian God. Thanks.
No, the laws of logic are reflective of the Christian God. They reflect his way of thinking.
Wait, you just said they're. So you said
They reflect his way of thinking. They are what they are. They reflect his way of thinking.
Sorry, I just want to get this straight before we continue, because first you said it mirrors his nature, mirrors them, or they mirror his nature, or whatever.
It's all
And then
synonymous
you
with each
said-
other.
No, it's not. So let me explain. So first you said that his nature mirrors them. Then you said that his nature is constituted of them, and now you're back to saying that they're reflective, that they reflect his nature. I just want to know, are they? I mean, what are they in relation to God? And I just want to get a straight answer. That
Yeah,
we
they
can
just
use
they make
going
up.
forward
Yeah, they
that's
make up.
unambiguous.
Yeah, they make up his nature, and it can't be.
And they can't be what?
They cannot be changed.
Okay, so the God itself is unchanging, and then these laws supposedly are also unchanging. So they're two things which seem to be co-equal and eternal and ultimate. So how is it that your system doesn't have multiple ultimates?
That would be incoherent. What's universal and ultimate is one, not several.
But is God one or several?
One. Well, he's one, but three persons.
Oh, so he's several and he's one. Okay,
No.
so it's not
There's
true that it's not true that it can only be one.
Well, he has to be one and several because I mean, you said that when I asked you why doesn't mere theism
No, there's
account
unity.
for the,
No.
Can I just finish
Yeah,
my
exactly.
point real quick? When I stated that, when I asked you why mere theism can't account for the preconditions for intelligibility and it has to be Christianity, you brought up the Trinity. So I mean, then it has to be many, otherwise it can't account for the one and the many problem, can it?
I still don't understand. No, it wouldn't be many. It's just that I don't know whether you've heard this analogy before. You know Cerberus, the three-headed dog?
Yeah.
How many heads did he have?
He had three.
Not one head?
No, he had three.
That's
Yeah,
many
so
heads.
Cerberus. That's why he's called. That's why he's called Cerberus, the three-headed dog. The three-headed dog. But yeah, he had three heads, but he was one. Right.
No, he's
So
three.
he was.
He's got three heads. He doesn't have one head. He has three heads.
I know. That's why I said he's called Cerberus, the three-headed dog. So, like Cerberus, the three-headed dog, you have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. They're all composed of. They're all one.
And
There's
God
a
backwards is
plurality
God.
No, they're
in
not.
diversity among unity.
Since the laws of logic make up God's nature, is he constrained by them as well?
Yeah, he can't change his own nature. Now, most people will say, well, not necessarily omnipotent, but the biblical definition, and I have to go on a little bit just because it's pretty late for me, but the biblical definition of omnipotent is not literally meaning like, capable of doing anything at all. Because if that's similar to like a chance, that's similar to like a chance reality where there's nothing that demarcates possibility from impossibility. If God can do all things, that would be to be contradictory and have a paradoxical nature. That he wouldn't necessarily be all powerful, would he? So he's constrained to his own nature insofar as he can't exude any falsehood or contradiction.
Wait, but there are so there are verses in the Bible where talks about God deceiving prophets and that the deception came from God. So
yeah,
that
I don't
seems
know.
like
Yeah, you're not talking about the God of the Bible.
Well, okay, that's in the Bible.
Yeah, okay. No, it's not. You don't know what you're talking about.
You don't even know the verse.
Isn't there
Before you even before you just jump and reply and just say I don't know what I'm talking about, you should hear me out. So let me find the verse. I'm pretty sure it's in Isaiah.
No, I have to. I have to leave.
Oh no.
Before I find the verse.
Yeah, I even admonished before. Yeah.
Hey, can I ask you a quick question before you go? Oh, wow.
Hey Dar, thanks for the conversation. It was a lot of fun. You're a lot easier to talk to than a lot of the presuppositional.
He's gone.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thanks, Seth. Thanks for that.
Why are you thinking me?
All right,
I have to step
I'm gonna
away
walk
from
back
my
over then.
dog out for a
What?
minute.
I got blue balled.
Was that a sarcastic thank you? I never get thanked sincerely.
That's not true.
What? I would never thank you, Seth, for anything.
Yeah, love is never having to say thank you.
Real quick, Chum, is Chum here?
Yeah, I'm here. What's
Oh,
up?
did you see the verse that I put in
Gotta take the dog
from
out.
the Niv?
Gotta take the dog out.
Yes, that's great. God sends a powerful delusion. It's great. I was gonna find the one where it's talking about prophets.
I have to take care of my dog. I will be back.
Prophets lying.
That's the same verse, isn't it? Or the same part?
I don't know. I have to find.
I'll have to watch the replay later.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out where this this presupper hatched from. I mean, DG had said that he was quoting Bonson verbatim.
His name is very, very Darth-esque.
He's been hanging out around DD. I had a video on him giving an argument showing that atheism is false, and it was just an argument against naturalism, but it was very ham-fisted in the formation. Let me see if I can find it.
Interesting.
I've
Here
seen
it
him a couple times. I've seen him a couple times before.
So he went by Atheism False, which was
That is
DD's
him.
original name. So
Yeah,
it seems
yeah.
to really have been taken up by DD. So this is his
That's what I
argument.
wondered.
Premise one: we're a set of particulars. Particulars are contingencies. Contingencies require an absolute. Naturalism is bereft of absolutes. Conclusion: atheism false.
I don't think I've ever seen an argument that has zero true. Well, premise one is arguably true. But arguably every single premise is false.
Yeah, I think premise two, you just point to, like on his system, you just point to God. God is a particular. Contingencies require absolute.
I mean, it's a formally invalid argument as well, for whatever that's worth.
Because the premises don't include atheism anywhere.
Or
the best part of
the word false, and I don't know what bereft. I mean, there's a number of things that don't really make sense.
Modus ponens is just an assumption. JHC.
Well, it is an assumption, but whether it's just an assumption is pretty hard to argue for one way or the other. All right, but I gotta go. I'm being rude.
All right. See ya.
Never.
We are a set of
never.
What the fuck? What the fuck?
What the fuck?
I don't even understand this.
The argument?
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing?
No.
By amazing, I mean like the same way that you look at conspiracy theorists and say, "Wow, what kind of person could believe these things?"
Typically, by what the fuck?
Like DGH says, if God is a particular, that means he's contingent, which means God requires an absolute.
What was his name when he was on here?
Darwin's Dilemma just now.
Yeah, that's like, it is literally just parroting DD. So incredible.
Yeah, I've seen him as atheism.
Except he answers questions.
Thought it was his son.
You hear the similar cadence he had too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tone.
He sounded just like him.
Little
I thought he
quick.
looked just like me, yes, sir.
Did you hear the K's?
The K's.
You know how DD has his like K? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
I hadn't noticed. I didn't notice that.
Well,
He used to do okay good a lot. Okay, good.
Okay, good. Yeah, he did
Now.
used to do that.
Yeah, right where you were still talking.
Okay, good.
Yeah, when I first unmuted myself or undeafened myself, I thought it was DD, but then I was like, oh no, it's his son.
No, he doesn't talk to his son.
That was fun. Where'd you guys find this one?
I gotta say that when your opponent in an argument says, okay, good, it's the opposite of disarming, right? It's like, oh no, why is that?
So,
Do you believe that all facts are contingent?
so he had to go.
Okay, good.
Why did he leave?
God is obviously not a fact.
He had to go take his dog out.
Anybody know if he
Gonna
ran
take the
back
dog
to
out.
Darth's room? By chance?
I
He
have to
left
take care
very
of my
quickly
dog.
when I
I will be
mentioned to
back.
him
Okay, yeah, I
in
have to
response
step
to
away,
God
bring my
being
dog
only
out
truth
for a minute.
exuding that there are verses where he sends delusions to prophets. Hold on, I
Yeah.
gotta go. Sorry.
I don't see him where I found him, but he could be in